Hello and good evening. Welcome back. I hope you're ready for some more OCD training. Now, just so you know, I have my free therapy dogs with me. And this one too. I have my book. So let's go, shall we? Let's get straight into it. Letting thoughts go. Intrusive thoughts will continue to bother you as you are tackling this problem. You'll need to practice letting the thoughts go. This is the problem I have. A thought gets in my head and it's just not going anywhere, you know? The thoughts are insignificant and irrelevant, and do not need to be confronted, argued with, cancelled out or neutralised in any way. Now this is revolutionary, people. Very revolutionary. Where was I? Any of those responses to the thoughts has the paradoxical effect of making the thoughts more salient and frequent. Very true. A useful metaphor is the unwelcome guest at a party. Excuse me, I have a quick... Okay, that's better. There we go. Imagine you are at an enjoyable party. Not just any party, an enjoyable one. Someone you really dislike comes through the door. You could run up to them and try to push them out the door, shouting and screaming at them, trying to get other people to help you. But this would ruin the evening for you and many other people. This is like trying to do something with your thoughts. Or after you notice their arrival, you could ignore the unwelcome guest. Even if they brush past you or remain in your sight for a while, carry on drinking your drink and enjoying your conversation. This is like ignoring your intrusive thoughts, even if they are rattling around in your thinking for a good while. Tolerating some uncertainty. The idea of tolerating uncertainty is an important part of tackling an OCD problem. As we have discussed in earlier chapters, OCD can feel like being plagued with doubts and uncertainties. For some people, this can be doubt about whether they shut the front door. That's one I often get, or rather locking it. For others, about whether they have picked up a disease. I get that too. I get most things. Thinking about it, it's quite tragic. But that's why I'm reading the book. So. In behavioural experiments, it is often important to tolerate doubt and uncertainty. What we mean by this is to put up with it. Uncertainty is a part of life. We all live with the uncertainty of death, illness, or what will happen tomorrow. We have all learned or become accustomed to living with this uncertainty. If we are not certain, that doesn't mean that we are completely uncertain. OCD may have convinced you that you need to be 100% certain about something. It is usually impossible anyway. In behavioural experiments, when you are doing things differently from your sessional ways, you will need to practice putting up with a difficult sense of uncertainty. As we will go on to examine, you might predict that you won't be able to cope with this, or that it will last for a long time. These are all ideas that can be tested out in behavioural experiments. Tolerating some anxiety. Challenging your problem does involve putting up with some anxiety. This sounds off-putting, but remember how much anxiety you experience every day due to OCD. Anxiety works in the same way in OCD as it does for any other fear or phobia. For example, if you're afraid of spiders and saw one in the garden, your anxiety would go right up, and if you ran away, it would go down again very quickly. However, you would remain afraid of spiders and would be as frightened the next time you saw one. In the same way, if you have an intrusive thought, you'll feel a spike in anxiety. If you then do a ritual, leave the situation or do any other kind of safety-seeking behaviour, your anxiety temporarily goes down. However, as you have not changed your belief about your thoughts, your anxiety will jump up again at the next thought. You'll believe that the thought meant danger and you need to act on it. Sorry, let me read that again, that sentence. I'll start again. Stuttering. I ain't done that since I was a kid. Your belief that the thought meant danger and you need to act on it is still there, as you have no other information. I hope that makes sense because I'm not explaining it. Behavioural treatments for OCD, sometimes called exposure and response prevention, ERP, work on the principle that everyone is capable of habituation to anxiety, getting used to the anxiety over time. In ERP treatment, you would be encouraged to do something such as touch a contaminated object for 10 minutes without washing your hands. Do they mean literally hold on to the thing for 10 minutes, or are they saying like you touch it so that you've got it on you and then you just wait 10 minutes to wash your hands? I mean, if you're going back to the spider analogy, that means I've got to hold a spider for 10 minutes. I don't really have a phobia of spiders, but the small ones I don't know. The big ones I probably do. But I wouldn't want to hold in my hands for 10 minutes. Or am I thinking too much into this? During those 10 minutes, this is back to the book by the way, not my thoughts. During those 10 minutes, your anxiety will go down. Each time you attempt it, your anxiety will be slightly less and will go down, provided you do no compulsions. Over time, your anxiety will be greatly diminished. Now, if you have a look, we got a little graph here. There you go, I'll leave that there for about 5 seconds from now, so you can pause and look. Okay, that's long enough. In CBT, we have built on this principle when we use behavioural experiments. In each experiment, we can predict that your anxiety will go up, and we make a prediction about how bad it will be and for how long. Then we can record whether it was as bad as you predicted. Most of the time, behavioural experiments are designed to test out other ideas as well, such as whether someone actually becomes ill from contamination if you don't wash your hands, and to find out what happens to your beliefs about responsibility when you try to do things differently. Dealing with responsibility beliefs. As you all know from reading the previous chapters, having broad shoulders with regard to responsibility plays a very important role in the development of OCD and in keeping it going. Because of an inflated sense of responsibility, people are motivated to try to stop bad things happening and become obsessional in their efforts to be safe enough. Therefore, it goes without saying that in tackling the OCD and not doing what it is telling you to do, you'll feel less responsible and perhaps even irresponsible. This has probably been a very powerful reason to keep on doing compulsions and safety-seeking behaviours. Challenging all or nothing thinking. Let's consider this idea a bit further and draw a continuum of responsibility, with total responsibility on one end and total irresponsibility on the other hand. And I will show you. See, that's the sort of thing it's got me doing. I think that's been there long enough for you to pause it. Now let's go back to the case example. Mark lived with his parents, spent hours each day straightening and ordering things around the house. He was really concerned that if he didn't have everything he owned ordered and arranged in a particular careful way, something bad would happen to one of his parents. That's a strange superstition Mark's got there. Some of his concerns was about tangible risks, such as them falling down the stairs. Some of his concern was about things not feeling right. If things were not just so that something bad would happen. Let's go back. Let's start the sentence again, shall we? Some of his concern was about tangible risk, such as them falling down the stairs. Some of his concern was about things not feeling right. Things were not just so that something bad would happen. He felt very strongly that he was responsible for their safety, and that if anything bad happened to them, it would be his fault. That would make him a terrible, bad person. It is useful for Mark to draw up two continua. 0% responsible to 100% responsible, and 0% good to 100% good. And this goes back to the chapter you saw, the little diagram I showed you just now, before I started reading about Mark. Mark thought that a person who gets very, very drunk and drives home fast during the rush hour near to a school was 0% responsible, and the control of a nuclear power station was a good example of a 100% responsible person. I can honestly say, I truly hope that people in charge of nuclear power are 100% responsible. I know there have been incidents, and I try not to think about it too much because I don't actually. I suppose there is the nuclear station at Dungeness. Is that still going? I'll have to look that up. Personally, I don't really have an option on the nuclear option because I don't know enough about nuclear power, if I'm honest with you. However, if you wish to start an argument and say things like nuclear is king, nuclear is better than renewables, please do so because it drives engagement. And it means that more people will see this video. And more people equals more views and more subscribers. So that's a good thing. However, if you are going to start an argument, please be civilised, because I won't be getting involved because I don't know enough. When Mark considered who he thought was at the end of a good-bad continuum, he thought that Hilda was 0% good, and Mother Theresa was close to 100% good. I have explained this on the screen, but I'm going to quickly say now, okay? When I say Hilda, I mean, the bad Austrian man with the toothbrush moustache. Him, The one that played a massive, massive part in World War II and took the cow's way out at the end when he lost. That one, but obviously you can't actually say anything because YouTube tends to censor it. So I'm going to be referring to him as Hilda. Mark undertook to disarrange his possessions and let his parents wander around freely. He was frightened that by changing his behaviour in this way, this would be totally irresponsible, bad because he would be moving down the scale from Mother Theresa towards Hilda. The problem is that there are only two options here. Mark thought about some people that he knew, and other famous people and placed them on this line. He found that these two people generally fell somewhere between the two extremes. That is, few people are 100% good or bad, responsible or irresponsible. He was able to conclude that being more carefree around his house does not mean that he was irresponsible or bad, and realised that OCD had tricked him into thinking in an all or nothing way. Okay, we have another one here. Well, it's the same thing, but there are actual examples on this one. Look, if I can leave this up long enough for you to read. Okay, that's enough. As you can tell, on the responsible list, at 0% or just over 0%, you have drunk driver. Later on, you have litter dropper. Then you have Ben from football. Seems personal. Bill from work. Is apparently better than Ben. Okay, he's got himself on this listed a person. Just before brain surgeon. Ain't that hard because it's not rocket science, brain surgery. Prime Minister. Again, if you want to start an argument about him, do so in the comments. I won't get involved. Just keep it civilized. And nuclear power station manager. And for the good to bad list, you have 0%. Good, you have Hilda. Then you have Pol Pot. I suppose really they should really be on the exact same angle. I mean, I know Pol Pot didn't quite do as many as Hilda did, but he wiped out a third of his people. That's got to count for something, hasn't it? And further up the list, or just over halfway, you got Jack at work, then the author, then Mum, and Mother Theresa at what I presume is 95%. Now I know Mother Theresa supposedly wasn't the saint they made her out to be, but for the sake of this book, just so you know, we're gonna pretend that she was. There'll be a link in the description towards Mother Teresa's Wikipedia page, so you can read up on it yourself and draw your own conclusions. Again, if you wish to start an argument about it in the comments, feel free to do so because it drives engagement. However, just keep it civilized because I won't be getting involved. And if it does get bad, I will delete. I think I can do that if I had. I think I had the power to do that anyway. Now back to the book. If you have OCD and spend much of your time thinking about the consequences of your actions and trying to stop bad things from happening, it is likely that you are nearer Mother Theresa and control of the nuclear power station than you are to Hilter and the drunk driver. Now, personally, I would say Hilter is more evil than a drunk driver. But drunk drivers are pretty scummy people too. If you know someone who drinks drives, feel free to shame them. On the responsibility continuum, think about where the average person is, which is likely to be somewhere near the middle. If you think about the average person, without OCD that is, who does not take extra precautions or worry excessively about their thoughts and actions, they are a long way from being totally irresponsible. Yet they are generally concerned and cautious when they need to be. If you have OCD, you will probably be much more responsible than the average person. So changing and tackling your OCD will make you towards the normal and healthy middle range where most people are. You can also apply this continuum technique to ideas about cleanliness, perfection, or anything else where you spot an all or nothing bit of thinking. One of the tricks OCD uses is to get you to treat things as though they are black and white. Going through this exercise can help you see that for most things, this is not true. Challenging inflated responsibility. Because they are sensitive to ideas of responsibility, people with OCD can sometimes feel that things in the past were their fault, or that things in the future would be their fault to a huge degree. Yeah, I get that. It's possible that if you think this, you may be seeing things through the magnification of inflated responsibility. Here are some examples. Case example. Barbara once had a serious accident when driving a car, and the other driver was badly injured. It had been wet weather, and the other driver was driving fast and didn't look when coming into her lane. However, she was unhurt in the accident, Barbara worried that she was somehow responsible. Now, we just know that Barbara is not responsible. But it's only natural that you're going to feel you are because you were there at the time. If you weren't there, then that accident would not have happened, or at least it wouldn't have involved you and you would never have known about it. So, sympathise with Barbara, please, people. It's not her fault, but she's going to believe it is until forever. Now, there's a little pie chart which I'm going to show you. I presume that's about right. See, if I see, there we go. Took some interesting, but I done it. You can see it now, or you can. That's long enough to pause it and look. So, contributing factors and how much they influenced the accident. So, the driver was looking. Driver not looking, that's 50% already. Other driver was going too fast, that's 20%, that's 70% already. So that puts Barbara at the moment at 30%. Bad road conditions, wet, dark and late, 20%. That takes it up to 90%, so Barbara's only 10% at fault now. Bad road, 95%. Barbara's at 95% wrong now. Or, sorry, what am I saying? Bugger this up. No. Okay, 50 plus 20 plus 20 makes 90. That means that Barbara is 10% at fault at the moment. The bad road is 5%. That takes it down to 5%. You have 1% others. Perhaps the other driver was in a hurry. Not paying attention, not looking. We do know the driver did not look. So that's 96%, and that puts 4% of Barbara's driving. Now, unfortunately, you don't know the full story, but we're going to presume here that Barbara is 100% not at fault. So, unfortunately, it's a sad fact of life. If you are involved in an accident, whether it's your fault or not, you're going to feel something. And if you don't, I would see someone. No, seriously, do so. to the book. Barbara concluded that her driving was a very small slice of the pie. This tiny sliver of influence was not the same as full responsibility. If the other 96% of the pie had not been there probably would not have been an accident. Case example. When Charlie was younger, he had a pet rabbit called Triglet. He always said goodbye to Triglet and gave him a stroke before he went off to school. One day he rushed off to school without stroking the rabbit and had the thought, I hope Triglet is okay. When he returned, the rabbit was not there. His parents had taken him to the vet to be put down. Charlie had not known that Triglet was ill, and always worried that because he had not said goodbye that he somehow caused Triglet's death. Because of this experience, over time Charlie developed to believe that his thoughts were important, and he said rituals every night to keep those he loved safe from harm. Even though he knew that these were pointless and couldn't really keep anyone safe, he felt very bad if he did not do the ritual, or did not do it properly due to a sense of responsibility. Poor Charlie. I think the parents should have waited till Charlie was at home so he could say goodbye properly. I mean, it's not good for a kid to deal, but then again though, the kid coming home one day and they're like, you're not going to see him again. That's going to damage the kid just as much. At least be there, you can show him death at first hand, because we all got to learn about death at some point. And because he's young, you could always pass on some story about the afterlife being a thing. I mean, you believe what you want, you're older, but it doesn't hurt really to let the kids believe in something. Especially if it lets them deal better with death. Charlie thought about his early experience and other factors that played a role in Triglet's death. So there's another pie chart here. So 80% goes towards Triglet being ill, which Charlie did not know. He had no way of knowing because no one told him and he was just a kid. He had no way of knowing. Triglet was also old. So that makes 10, so that's 90% already. Mum and Dad decided that Triglet was in incurable pain. That's another 10%, so that makes 100%. I mean, as sad as it is, if your pet is in that much pain, then it's the humane thing to do, because you wouldn't want anyone to go through suffering like that. I mean, especially if it's unnecessary. So sad. This makes me think of pets I've lost. Very sad. Back to the book though. Charlie knew on one level that it was unlikely his thoughts had caused the death of his rabbit, but he had never really taken the time to consider the other factors that might have played a part. This was probably because this had happened when he was a child, and he did not have the capacity to think things through in the same way as he did now. The original association he made was due to a coincidence, but his interpretation of this at the time had a lasting effect on his behaviour. It is not necessary to completely change your views of responsibility in order to overcome OCD, and there is nothing wrong with being a responsible person. However, it is important to truly understand the role that inflated responsibility plays in keeping OCD going, and how OCD might use that to stay aground. Summary. This is the end of the chapter, by the way. That's a summary. It's a short one, so stick with me. This chapter has explored an alternative way of thinking about your problem, that it is one of excessive worry rather than danger. Testing this out, accumulating evidence and acting accordingly is likely to help in your fight against OCD. Now, I hope this all made sense to you, because it did to me. So I hope you understood this too, because you're still here. Well, presumably you are anyway. I mean, if you're not here, you're not going to hear me say this. But we know this to be true. Those of us who do have this affliction know that it is our thoughts that drive this. Purely the thoughts. And most of it is absolute rubbish. So if you do have OCD or you have such thoughts, then I would recommend that you try and get past them. Do what the book suggests, If you've got some weird ritual that you do every day, try not to do it. I know it's easier said than done, okay? And I will admit, okay, I will struggle to do this, okay? But I'm going to give it a go. And if you are reading this book with me presumably you are since you're still here, then I hope that you give this a go too. Alright? Now, I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. So it's good night from me. It's good night from my therapy dogs. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.